Hi, everybody, it's Mrs. Buckman, and today we are going to be reading about the Mormons in order to fill out your section of Western settlers. You have been assigned the Mormons, which is right here. You are going to be figuring out what was their reason for settling, what were the hardships that they faced, what is the legacy, so what did they leave behind them, why are we still talking about them, and then an interesting fact, anything that was not in these three sections already. So you should have your textbook open to section 16.7, and let's read this section together. The Mormons. In 1846, a wagon train of pioneers headed west in search of a new home. Looking down on the shining surface of Great Salt Lake in what is now Utah, their leader, Brigham Young, declared, "This is the place." It was not a promising spot. One pioneer described the valley as a broad and barren plain, blistering in the rays of the midsummer sun. A woman wrote, "Weak and weary as I am, I would rather go 1,000 miles further than remain." But that was one of the valley's attractions. No one else wanted the place that Brigham Young claimed for his followers, the Mormons. A persecuted group. The Mormons were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith had founded this church in New York in 1830. Smith taught that he had received a sacred book, the Book of Mormon, from an angel. He believed that it was his task to create a community of believers who would serve God faithfully. Smith's followers lived in close communities, working hard and sharing their goods. Yet, wherever they settled, first New York, then Ohio, Missouri, and Illinois, their neighbors persecuted them. So persecuted means to treat them badly. They ran them out of town, they killed them, they attacked them. Many people were offended by the Mormons' teachings, especially their acceptance of polygamy, which was the practice of having more than one wife. By the way, the Mormons no longer have this practice. Others resented the Mormons' rapidly growing power and wealth. In 1844, resentment turned to violence when a mob in Illinois killed Joseph Smith. After Smith's death, Brigham Young took over as leader of the Mormons. Young decided to move his community to Utah. There, the Mormons might be left alone to follow their faith in peace. And so the first thing we're looking for is, why are they settling? Well, the Mormons, of all the groups that students are reading about, the Mormons are unique in that they really settled for protection. They settled to so that they were no longer being persecuted. We know that their neighbors persecuted them, and as a result, Young decided to move his community to Utah, and it was there that he thought that the Mormons might be left alone and that they could have religious freedom. And so that would be their reason for settling. So now let's look at the hardships that they faced. West to Utah. Young turned out to be a practical as well as a religious leader. Prayer is good, he said, but when baked potatoes and pudding and milk are needed, prayer will not supply their place. Young carefully planned every detail of the trek to Utah. The pioneers he led west stopped along the way to build shelters and plant crops for those who would follow. Even with all this planning, the journey was difficult. "We soon thought it unusual," wrote one Mormon, to leave a campground without burying one or two or more persons. When he arrived at Great Salt Lake, Young laid out his first settlement, Salt Lake City. By the time he died in 1877, Utah had 125,000 Mormons living in 500 settlements. To survive in this dry country, Mormons had to learn new ways to farm. They built dams, canals, and irrigation ditches to carry precious water from mountain streams to their farms in the valley. With this water, they made the desert bloom. All right, and so hardships that were faced. Well, the land that Brigham Young chose was really not great. All right, so they lived in dry country. All right, on the way there, the journey was difficult. Let's see. Basically, they moved to a barren wasteland, and so that was a huge hardship that the Mormons faced. Now, finally, we're looking for legacy. The Mormons' legacy. The Mormons were the first Americans to settle the Great Basin. They pioneered the farming methods adopted by later settlers in this dry region. They also helped settlers make their way west. Salt Lake City quickly became an important stop for travelers in need of food and supplies. To the Mormons, however, their greatest legacy was the faith that they planted so firmly in the Utah desert. From its center in Salt Lake City, the Mormon Church has grown into a worldwide religion with more than 11 million followers. All right, and so there's quite a few things that the Mormons have left behind. They were the ones that pioneered the farming methods that people still use in the dry regions of the desert. Their desert is very similar to the desert that we live in here in Hesperia. They also helped settlers make their way west. And the Mormons also, they left a faith, the Mormon Church, which has grown into a worldwide religion. Utah is still the largest group of Mormons in the world. And there's actually a lot of Mormons here in California, and particularly in the high desert. And so something that they left behind was this religion that so many people today still follow. All right, so now you are going to find your interesting fact and put it right here. And you'll be turning these notes into your slideshow presentation. Good luck, and let me know if you need any help.